driving home from here or something. Because I know I need to have a whole other week before I have to do it again. Sounds
It's a
terrible.
long way, Father. It's a long way.
It's a long day. I don't know where it came from. Different parts of let's wait for a couple more. That's a good question. Somebody who wants, they can't attend, but they want to. Yeah. So I guess I've answered my question.
So the question was asked, why are people touching my vestments when I go around sometimes? So really the answer to that is how do I put it? There's a miracle story in the Bible where the woman who had a flow of blood was trying to remain anonymous, and she touched the fringe of Jesus' garment and was cured of her ailment. And he says, somebody touched me because I feel energy come out of me. And then there's another reference to Peter in the book of Acts, where the garment of Peter fell upon someone who had died and actually resurrected. The person came back to life. So in the church, there's been this tradition with a small t that holy vestments carry a degree of healing. Small t. So I have not experienced that more than here. I've been to many churches throughout the United States. I was at the cathedral in New York. Nobody. I came here, and a lot of people do it. It's just a sentiment of I want to be. They're not touching me. It's the vestments, holy vestments that basically doing, because that's all. There's no reason. There's no real. It's not necessary. You see it more often with bishops or patriarchs. People want to touch. Okay. I get a little bit nervous with all that kind of stuff, because there is no greater miracle or presence of Jesus than receiving Holy Communion. So it's interesting to me that some people want to touch my vestments, but they don't want to receive Holy Communion. So it's like, okay, it doesn't really. So I'm not judging them. I'm just saying that, it's more of a sentiment, more sentimentalism, if I may say that. But it's not necessary to do that. But you find that done oftentimes in villages. Yeah. It could be different. Everybody could be doing it for a different reason. Yeah. I don't know if that helped. So before we say our prayer, I'm going to ask you what you want to do. We can continue with for this particular Bible study, we can continue with the questions that Jesus asked in the book of John, or we can take a look at what I was mentioning today in my sermon, chapters 13 and 14 of the book of Genesis, the issue of Lot and Abraham. So I leave it to you. What is your preference? Oh, no. It would just be an excursion. just an excursion, if possible. But it's up to you what you want to do. We can continue what we're doing, or we can... Don't leave it to me. You prefer the Old Testament? How many Old Testament? How many New Testament? New Testament wins. So we go to John. Okay, so go to John, and if I'm not mistaken, we finished, you tell me now, we finished chapter 2 with the miracle of Cana at Galilee, right? We went to chapter 5. Okay, good. So we're going to move into chapter 5 then. We did chapter 5? No, we weren't further than that. Chapter 6. Okay, so let's go to chapter. Good. Okay, so let's rise for a prayer, and then we'll begin. So next week I'm going to do it with everybody, but I'm going to do it with you today, is that when I say let's say the prayer, from what I get the feeling that I'm the only one that's saying it, and you're just kind of following along. So this time you're going to say it, and I'm going to be the one that says, let's listen. So let us pray to the Lord. Wait. So, ready? Illumine our hearts. Yeah, see, so I'm right. You don't do it. So you're not all doing it. So I'll do it with you this time. Let us pray to the Lord. Illumine our hearts, loving Master, with the pure light of your divine knowledge, and open the eyes of our minds that we may comprehend the message of your gospel. Instill in us also deep respect for your blessed commandments, so that having conquered sinful desires, we may pursue a spiritual life, thinking and doing all those things that are pleasing to you. For you, Christ our Lord, are the light of our souls and bodies, and to you we give glory, together with your Father, who is without beginning, and your all-holy, good, and life-giving Spirit, now and forevermore. Amen. Okay, now you can be seated. So just be ready next week. The community's going to do it, not me. So let me just open up a parenthesis, and I'll close it because this allows me to do a little catechism at the same time. So some of you may know this, some of you may not know this, that in the canons of the church, there are prescribed rules, guidelines, for almost all activity in the church, but they're guidelines. As opposed to the Roman Catholic Church, where a canon is considered a rule. Okay? So for us, they're more stay within the guideline. In the Catholic Church, it's more rigid. There's more rigidity there. Yeah, but it's just the rule is a little more rigid than in the Orthodox tradition. And because the study of canon law in the Church, I'll be able to really help you understand here, is what is the name of the book in Greek for canon law? The book, what's it called? That's the canon, that's the translation, canon, canones. What's it called? The book is called something. Typikon is for us, liturgically, pidalion. To pidalion. Pidalion. So pidalion means rudder. On a ship. It kind of guides you along. So that's the name of the book. So they're not canons like the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church calls it Book of Canons, rules. A canona is a rule. No, in the Orthodox tradition, they are rudders. So there's guidelines. They're not rigid. It's not rigid. So there are guidelines within the Church for priests and for chanters and for people what to do. For example, I bet you don't know this, that there's a canon in the Church that says to the priest that even though we know the prayers by heart, we're supposed to have a book in our hand when we say it. So when I come out and do the Efchi, right? Many priests know it by heart. I know it by heart too, but I'm not allowed to read, I'm not allowed to say it without a book in my hand, according to the canons of the Church. Again, guideline. So I'm not saying that those who do it are wrong, I'm just saying that it's a guideline. Same thing at the end. When I'm saying the prayer to go at the end, basically know it by heart. We're not supposed to say it by heart, we're supposed to be looking at it. Guideline. Why? Why do you think? No? No? So our minds don't wander. So we're not saying it like a parrot. So we focus. Same thing with chanters. Chanters have a number of guidelines. For example, there's a canon in the Church that says that chanters must understand the language that they are chanting in. It says it. Canon. They not only must, when they say understand, they don't mean just to understand the words, to understand the meaning of the words. And if you don't understand the meaning of it, then you have no business being a chanter. So you're not singing songs, you are worshiping. That's the emphasis. So why do I say that? I say that, again, as a spiritual guideline for you, is that it's dangerous, and I use the word intentionally, dangerous to be at night, to be saying our prayers, the Paterimon, all those prayers there, without a book in your hand. Because you're going to say it, and then you're going to say, Toipa, did I say it? I forgot it. You say it because you know it, but you're not focusing. When you're looking at the words, this is one of the reasons why I say to people, open up your paper and look at it and read with me the prayer. Because you're focusing here, as opposed to just, yes, like a parrot. So I kind of share that with you just to let you know that there are liturgical protections put in there. The issue is, do we follow them or not follow them, or we just say, they're not important, we scatter them, and before you know it, we find ourselves over here rather than being over here. Okay? So I share that with you. I close the parenthesis. So chapter 6, Gospel of St. John. Again, just as a repetition for us all, what is the purpose of the Gospel of St. John? Okay, so yes, close. So you find it in chapter 20. Chapter 20, verse 30, page 1465 in the book that we have. It says, "And truly, Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book, but these are written that you may," here it comes, but these are written that you may, that's the reason, that you may, so that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. Period. Now, I say that to you because, just to remind us, if people say, well, what's the purpose of the Gospel of St. John? The emphasis is on the signs. Jesus did signs, and the reason why I'm showing you these signs in the Gospel of St. John, so that by looking at the signs, you may believe that he is the Christ, the Son of God, and that you have life in his name. Now, there are scholars who say that the Gospel of St. John ends there, by right. That there was the earlier version of the Gospel of St. John ended there. Somewhere along the line, people are saying there are two theories. One theory is that the older version has this in it, chapter 21, and we lost the older version. So we found a younger version that did not have it. But there is a version that does have it, that's younger, and they're saying that the younger is older than the younger. I know that's confusing, but there's a group that say that. I don't accept that. I accept that the Gospel of St. John typically ends at 20. 21 is an addition later on. Is an addition. It does not fit. Because he's telling us why he wrote his gospel. What, are you going to tell us the end of your story, then all of a sudden you're going to add another whole chapter? Doesn't really make any sense. So, but the emphasis here, that's not for a Bible study. That's a semester to talk about chapter 21. But I share that with you is that so we'd never forget the skopos of the writer. So when I say, what is the skopos of Matthew? What's the purpose of Matthew? Why is he writing? What's his purpose? That's what he does. That's right. The emphasis is that the Gospel of St. Matthew, his purpose is to prove that Jesus was a human being. Really, that he was theanthropos, that he was a man and God at the same time. The Gospel of St. Matthew. That's why when I mentioned to you this morning, when you see the Gospel book, the Evangelion, and you see the icon of St. Matthew, is it over here? No. I don't think you have it here. Or do you? Where is it? The little guy on the chandelier. Oh, over there? Does it have a thing next to him? No. What I'm looking for is when you see the pendentives on a dome. So you know what I'm talking about. The pendentives are those four things that kind of hold the dome up. That's typically where they put the icons of the gospel writers. The four there. And next to them is an image. So let's say here's an image of me. Next to me, small, would be an image, a symbol, so to speak. The Gospel of St. John, there's an eagle for him, representing that the miracles he's looking at the miracles in the life of Jesus theologically. So it lifts us up, the Gospel of St. John. It's theological, it lifts. Okay? The Gospel of St. Matthew, there's a little boy, typically. And it's really not so necessarily a little boy. The emphasis is on it's a human being next to him, like a child almost. So it's emphasizing the flesh of Jesus, that he was a human being. He suffered. It was true. He wasn't a ghost. And to prove that he was a human being, let me give you his genealogy. So we get the genealogy in Matthew. So at Christmas time, most all of the Gospels that we read are from the Gospel of St. Matthew, intentionally because the emphasis is there. Okay, the Gospel of St. John is used typically during Pentecost. Right after Pentecost, a lot of the Gospel of St. John because of the signs. And the signs have one major thing in common: water, which emphasizes the baptism business. Okay, so there are many The Gospels are really divinely inspired. There's no question, because it's like a symphony with a lot of different things going on, and they all come together. They all fit. You see, so Matthew has a lot of different things going on, but the emphasis is on the boy, humanity. The Gospel of St. John, the emphasis is on the miracles, theology, bring us to him. What's the scopos of Mark? Royalty. The royalty of Jesus. So you see a lion next to Mark, because at that time the lion represented the royalty of Rome. Strength, power. So if you read Mark, you're going to see over and over again the emphasis is on the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Master. He is above the heavens. And so you're going to get a lot of that there. And in the Gospel of Luke, to me that's the easiest one. It's usually a lamb or a ram sacrifice. So Luke emphasizes that Jesus came to sacrifice himself for us. Now, if you know that, these are the keys that immediately says, okay, so if I want to focus on theology, I go to Mark. I want to focus on humanity, I go to Matthew. If I want to focus on the kingdom of heaven, I go to Mark. If I want to see the sacrifice of Jesus, I go to Luke. So I share that with you. These are quick keys. There's a lot of other stuff going on, but now, where did we get those four things? Ezekiel, the revelation of Ezekiel in the Old Testament. He was taken up into heaven and he saw these things. He saw, what are they called? Not ribbons, wheels. The wheels of Ezekiel. There's a song in the Protestant church about the Ezekiel and the wheels. Well, there are four wheels, he said, with colors, like a rainbow of colors. And then there was a boy, and then there was a ram, and then there was... And he didn't know what all those meant, you see. But in the book of Revelation, John has he's taken up into heaven too, and he sees the same thing. So the New Testament revelation is John, okay? Apocalypse, the revelation. And the revelation in the Old Testament is Ezekiel, and they're both the same. The church puts them together and we put them on the ceiling. And that's why you see the colors of the rainbow around the dome of an Orthodox church. It's taking the Old Testament and the New Testament and bringing them together, which is fantastic for those of us who understand what's going on. And then you say, well, why are the four people up on the roof? Well, it's the miracle, going back to John, the miracle of the paralytic that they brought to Jesus, remember? But they couldn't get into the house. So what did they do? They go to the top and they lowered the paralytic before Jesus. So the church says we are lowered. This is fantastic. We are lowered before the presence of Jesus through the Gospels. The Gospels are the rope hangers for us, so to speak. They're the friends, the four unnamed friends that bring us before Jesus so that he can heal us. So you cannot come, the church will say, you cannot come to Jesus except through his word. So there's an emphasis in the church on the Word of God and also on the sacramental part of the church. The two are important. That's why I keep saying to people, don't come after the gospel lesson. Why are you doing that to people? Because no one has ever told them what I'm telling you now. You must come through the gospel in order to receive Holy Communion. You don't say to yourself, oh, what time is it? Oh, the gospel is over now. That's not important. I'll come, and I'll receive communion, and then I'm okay. No, you're doing a disservice to the very Lord that you are taking within yourselves. Is this making any sense? Okay, so I share that with you as a frame for what we're going to do now. Okay, so Gospel of the 6th chapter, 1434, if you have the Orthodox Bible. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then notice again the emphasis on water. By the way, don't miss this stuff. You're going to see in the Gospel of St. John a lot of water, a lot of going over the river, a lot of going over in a boat, all this kind of stuff. After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. Then a great multitude followed him because they saw what? His signs. So on my Bible, I've circled signs, just to keep emphasizing, which he performed on those who were diseased. Now, open up a parenthesis. Why are signs so important to John? Why is he using signs in order to make us believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Why? Well, he did a lot of things. Why the signs? Why not focus just on what he said?
Maybe because from the Old Testament, Jesus also says that you can see signs when he talks to you.
The chapter before. Okay, yes, not yes and no, yes, but that's not the full answer. So in the previous chapter, he got mad, if you remember, at the Pharisees, and he says, why don't you believe? What's wrong with you? How come don't you know better? Okay? You should know better. Now, but what's he pointing to? He's pointing to something, we have an icon of it here. And it's, I want to get the right, Luke, it's in Luke 4. Turn to Luke 4 for a minute. Luke 4, starting on verse 17. Luke is right before John. So what's the emphasis of Luke, would we say? Sacrifice. Yes, Luke 4:17.
1371.
So he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. Notice the emphasis on his birth there. Childhood. Book Gospel of Luke. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, receive and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Then he closed the book, gave it back to his attendants, and sat down, and all the eyes were on him. Were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So all bore witness to him, and he marveled at the grace of the words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, Is this not Joseph's son?" See the emphasis again? On the childhood of Jesus, that he's a human being. Isn't this the son of God? Isn't this the son of Joseph? How does he tell us that he now is the presence? And then he says in verse 20, and he said to them, "You will surely say this proverb to me, 'Physician, heal yourself. Whatever we have heard done in Capernaum, do also here in your country.'" Then he went on. He went on and on and on. And the emphasis is that the signs point to this, and they wanted to crucify Jesus because he said, "I am he that's going to come to do all this." Later on in the Gospel of St. Luke, the disciples of John the Baptist go to Jesus and they say, "What should we tell John the Baptist?" He says, "Tell them what? The blind see, the lame walk." You see? In other words, take the signs and bring it to John, and John will believe. Are you with me so far? You see? So that's why we go back to John now, John 6, where we are. That's why the signs are important to him. Because the signs point to the fulfillment of the prophecy of Isaiah. Okay? What gospel lesson do we read in the church on the first day of the year? What is the first day of the year in the Orthodox Church? September the 1st. So if you come to church on September the 1st, what is the gospel that we read? This one. Right here. From Luke. Do you see that connection? You see how smart the church is, the Orthodox Church? They know exactly what they're doing. They're using the Bible in a methodical way in order to get people to understand who Jesus is, why he came, what did he do, so that you can believe in him. So by the time you get to Easter, you're ready to be baptized. You are baptized, and then you go into Pentecost, you receive the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and then you go on and transform the world, Transfiguration. The Transfiguration ends the year, August the 6th, basically. Mary, the mother of Jesus, is Dormition on the 15th, and we say, take a vacation, September 1st we start again. Is this making some sense to you? So there's a logic with a capital L to this. This is not scatterbrain. It's organized methodically, systematically. That's how it's done. So go back to 6. Then a great multitude followed him because they saw his signs, which he performed on those who were diseased. And Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. Now the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was near. When Jesus lifted up his eyes and seeing a great multitude coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?" But this he said to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. So why does Jesus ask that question? Who Jesus was. Because Jesus has already said a number of times that he is the bread of life. He's more important. So when he asked this, he wanted to test. Philip answered him, 200 denarii worth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may have a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a lad here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 small fish. But what are they among so many?" Now this is what miracle? The feeding of the 5,000. So what's the purpose of the feeding of the 5,000? What's the goal of Jesus? Go ahead and say it louder so everybody can hear. Trust in me and I will provide you what you need. Right? And that food is not the most important thing. Now I'm going to ask a question to you. What do you think the purpose of an artoclasia is? You know what I'm talking about, the artoclasia? When we bring the 5 loaves of bread and we have the Vesper service and people bring the 5 loaves. Well, why 5 loaves? Because it's this miracle. Okay? So we take the 5 loaves and we bless them, and the people bring the 5 loaves. So why are people bringing me the 5 loaves? Let's be truthful. Why do you think people are doing it?
You have to, like many of the miracles, you have to actually put it in. You have to take action in order to demonstrate your belief. Like the man that was laying by the water and get up, his bed after Jesus asked him.
Yes, and that's like the best. What I'm asking you is, correct. Right. Let's be honest here. The health of what? Right. And so what's happened to artoclasia is it's lost. So the artoclasia, if it's connected to this, okay, if Jesus did it in order to do what we said, to prove that I'll take care of your needs and that life is more than bread, people bring the artoclasia and they're saying to me, I want to do this so that I'll have prosperity in my life and the church will do well. In other words, it's almost like a bribe to Jesus for many people. Let's be honest. I'll say to them, well, we already have someone who's already bringing 5 loaves on behalf of the community. What do they say? Mine is better? In a sense, they are. Because instead of saying, oh, someone is bringing it, great. No, I want to bring my 5 too. So sometimes you have an artoclasia and there's like 15 of them there, or 10 of them there. At the cathedral, there was like a big table. And we're having an autoclasia, and this one's for Marangos, this is for this family, this is for that family, and this is for that family. We have what my point here is that we have lost the focus. The focus is that I bring the bread on behalf of the community so that we all can focus on the 5 loaves, and from 5 loaves we're all going to be blessed. Not that I have to have my own 5 loaves, and he needs to have his 5 loaves, and these 5 loaves are for my family, and this 5 loaves are for your family. Some people will say to me, I have not experienced it here, but I have experienced it somewhere else, I want you to do mine first. Yes. In the mind of the priest is, what an infant, spiritually. I won't say that to them, obviously. But in my mind, I'm saying, this is an infant's understanding of what we are doing. They're nowhere near what we are doing right now as far as understanding what we're doing. And here's the point. Go down a little bit further. Let's go back to the question again. I don't want us to miss it here. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing the people coming towards him, said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread that they may eat?" Okay? But this he said to test him. I like this. For he himself knew what he was going to do. I could do a Bible study just on that one line, that one question. Does Jesus test us to see how we're going to respond when he already knows what he's going to do? Yeah? Oh, yeah. There it is. It's right here. It's proof of the pudding. But what do we typically do? Let's be honest. What do we typically do to Jesus? Yes. We test him, don't we? If you love me, if you care for me, if you this, please. It's almost like we're not supposed to put God to the test, but we do it all the time. Bargaining, yeah. Negotiating with him. And then when he doesn't do what we want him to do, what do? Abandon him sometimes. In degrees of abandonment. And what is his response when we abandon him? And we all do it to various degrees. Yes, he tries to bring us back. Constantly. So the test here is not, I don't want you to see testing as like what I do in a classroom. You got a 0, you got a 15, you did this, No, he is, there's a better word than test. I don't have the Greek here, I should have had it. Do you know what it is by any chance, Manota, there? Say that again? To see where our heart is? Yeah. He knows what he's going to do. He wants to see, where are you? Where are we? He wants us to get closer to him, to understand who he is. Proving us, yeah. Yeah, again, that word proving is, I understand what it is, but it is a tough word too. Yeah, proving us. Yes. They're all similar. I like the word to temper us. To increase the heat so that we become stronger. Not to break us, but to actually make us better. Make us better. Church fathers love this. They think that, in the Old Testament it says it somewhere where God proves, he proves those that he loves. He tests those that he loves somewhere. In the Old Testament it says that. Because he's making us better. He's refining us. in the testing here. Purify. So this allows me to open up another parenthesis, because there's so much here. But I don't want to go. You've heard this before, but I want to keep saying it so that it begins to, all of a sudden you're going to have the aha experience here. Remember I said that in the spiritual life there are 3 phases: nipsis, opsis, and enosis. Nipsis is washing. Okay, the word literally means nipome, to wash. Nipsis. Opsis is I see, and enosis I am joined, united. And those are the 3 phases of the spiritual life. That's why in the church, in the liturgy, after we receive Holy Communion, what do we sing? Idom et ophos, we have now seen the light. See? And in the receiving of Holy Communion, what happens to us? We are what? Joined to God. And where is the nipsis? The nipsis in the liturgy is the Holy Scriptures. St. Paul says that it is the Word of God that washes us. How so? If you have a glass, and the glass is full of water, and I have a glass full of wine, how do I take the glass of wine and put it into the glass of water? I can either throw all of the water out and then fill the wine, or I can keep putting wine into the water. If I keep putting wine into the water, little by little by little, the water gets displaced until it's all wine. That's typically how it happens. It doesn't very rarely does it happen completely out and then completely different. Typically, it's a process. Here's the refinement. So this is what's going on here, is that Jesus is emptying himself, kenosis. He is emptying himself into his disciples little by little by little, so that they begin to see who Jesus ultimately is, and then finally at Pentecost they have union with him. Did that make sense? This is really, really a powerful thing that's going on here. I don't want you to miss it. That's why I'm spending so much time on this question. Where shall we buy bread that they may eat? Philip answers, we got some money, but it won't help us. Typical, right? Typical. So you go to a parish council meeting, and the question is, there's so many people coming to church, we really need to minister to them. And the answer is, we need to look at our treasury, Tamil, and see how much money is here. We don't have that much money to take care of them. We're going to have to charge them to come to the lunch. No, the issue is, they're coming? Let's feed them. No, let's do whatever is necessary. No, I only can do so much. You've got Jesus with you, okay? And instead of saying, Jesus, you're here. We don't need anything more than that. Immediately, what do? They look at the budget. So typical. It's so typical. But now it gets better. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon's Peter's brother, said to him, there is a lad here. This is great. Here's a little boy who has 5 loaves and 2 fish. But, he says, what is that among so many people? Again, so one person is looking at the tamia, the money. The other person is saying, in the group there's some people here, and here's a boy, he's got 5 loaves of bread, and some fish. Now, you don't know the context here. The context is that typically, first of all, there's all these people with Jesus, right? They're out listening to him preaching. This boy was probably a entrepreneur. He came out there. No, this is true. This is the way the rabbis interpret all of this, is that this boy, more than likely, had come out there because there was a whole group of people, and he figured, I'm going to sell some fish and I'm going to sell some bread to these people. And all of a sudden Philip says, hey, there's a guy over here, he's got some fish, but you know what, he only has 5 loaves and 2 fish. Then Jesus said to them, make the people sit down. Now there was much grass in that place, so not the kind that you smoke. Okay, so there was much grass in the place. So the men sat down in numbers about 5,000. Now again, a parenthesis here, quick parenthesis, is that scholars believe that there were a lot more than 5,000 people there. They're just saying that there were 5,000 men there, which means that there are a lot more than 5,000. But we tag on, we grab onto that 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to the disciples, and the disciples of those sitting down, and likewise of the fish, as much as they wanted. So when they were filled, he said to his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing is lost. Therefore, they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which were left over by those who had eaten. Then those men, when they had seen the sign, here it is again, that Jesus did, said, this is truly the prophet who is to come into the world. Now, obviously there's a lot going on there. Let's look at the liturgy. Is there any remnant of this in our liturgy? Do you see anything here that we do in the liturgy? I guess is my question.
You mean a sign?
Not a sign, a gesture that we do that points to this in the liturgy. Who gives you the bread when you leave? Me. I don't put the bread out and say, hey, take some bread. Well, why do I give it to you? Because of this. Because of this. Jesus multiplies the bread. He gives us his body. And then he tells the disciples to give it to the people. He didn't give it to the people without going through the disciples, did he? Don't lose that. This is important. This is important to see that. Because here the church fathers begin to see that there's a system in the church. It's not haphazard. Everybody has certain responsibilities. But what's important here is that Jesus does the miracle. The disciples distribute the miracle, the bread. But who supplies the bread? The people. No, the people. The lad, the boy supplied the bread. You see? We supply. That's why when we do a liturgy, who's supposed to bring the prosphora? Am I supposed to make prosphora at home and bring it and then distribute it to you? The people are supposed to do it because of this miracle. It brings the community together, that we are the body, that you all believe it. So you bring the bread, you bring whatever you can. You can only bring $5, you bring $5. You bring a loaf of bread, you bring a loaf of bread. You bring wine, you bring wine. Whatever you can, you give to the church. The person who represents the community, the priest, offers it to God. He blesses it, and then we give it back to the people. But now it's different. Now it's not your bread anymore. Whose bread is it? It's his bread. We just gave it to him. So as he gives it to you, what does he want you to do with it? Follow his direction. Live your life according to him. There is a system here. That's the test. That's the test. Do you, do I, do we believe that when we come to the church and we offer Jesus whatever we can, do we believe that he changes it, gives it back to us, so that what he gives back to us is more than what we gave him, so that when we go out into the world, we have impact? Do we believe it? Sometimes. Sometimes not. Sometimes we take it for granted. This is the reason why. This is the reason why. This is what it should be. Why people will say, after I've given them the bread, they come back and they take more. To do what with it? That's what they're supposed to do. But what do some people do? Do what? They save it. What do they do with it? They eat it during the week. So who is it for? Themselves. It's completely opposite than this. Completely the opposite. It's like, you know what? This is for me. This is all for me. It is a life of Christianity that is transactional. I give you this, you give me back. That's transaction, right? I give you $5, you give me $5 worth of whatever it is that I want. So therefore, there are people that, Orthodox, unfortunately, that they never give anything to the church unless, now it's a baptism. I got to give you some money, you're doing a baptism. Why? Because you're doing a baptism. If you weren't doing a baptism, I'm not going to give you anything. Why? Because there's nothing in it for me. You follow me? This is transactional Christianity. This is very infantile. Infantile. This is what Jesus is doing here. He's trying to teach us that the little that you have, if you give it to me, I will multiply it and bless it and give it back to you, and you will have left over. And you will have left over, but your business is not to yourself, your business is to... Are you willing, this is really the question Jesus asks every one of us, are you willing to give me what you have? From your scarcity, not from your abundance. It's not like the kid had 5,000 loaves of bread and he only gave 5. No, he only had 5 and 5 fish. And I guess, from what I can see, the little kid said, "Here, take it." It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. That's the logic of it.
On another note, when we do the 5 loaves, we give back 1 loaf to the family. What's the symbolism of loaf of that?
What it's supposed to be is that they're supposed to become priests and give it to others too. It's not theirs to bring home and say, this is mine. No, you just gave us 5 loaves. You just gave the church 5 loaves. I just blessed them. They're not yours anymore. You just gave them to the church. All right? Now, everyone is going to come and I'm going to give them some. And I give you 1 so that you can be a priest and give it to others on your own. Spudeo prawo αυτό. In English, a very significant thing there. Same thing with the andidaron. I give you some andidaron. You take some and you say, I'm going to be a priest now, and I'm going to go and bring it to other people who were not in church. Very nice. But if I'm going to take those 5 pieces home and put them on my shelf so that I can have it every day for me, now you're getting into some dangerous, because you're turning the church into a private, into private. It is not private. It is not private. As much as we've been nurtured into believing it is private, it is not private. Public. It is a shared faith, not a private faith. Yes, there's a component of my faith to Jesus is private, and yours is private, and we get together and we share our private faith as a group. So we share a common faith that we have. I may have a personal relationship with Jesus, but we share a common faith. Is this making any sense? So don't miss this question, because it's an important one.
So, along the same line, the same question, we do in the church the 5 loaves with the Bible, which is what Jesus did. We do the same thing. We put that responsibility, that burden to our workers and our parishioners.
And the question is?
Hand back the loaf.
Yes.
You're doing what Jesus did.
Correct. Exactly what Jesus did. This is what we're trying to do here. And what is the purpose, therefore? And what is the purpose?
To share.
And what is the purpose? To believe that Jesus is the Son of God, Remember what I said, how I started? What is the purpose of the gospel? The signs. And the signs, I'm showing you these signs, John says, so that what? Believing in them you will have everlasting life. Believe that in him you have life. See? So if that's the purpose of John, and this is the purpose of the sign, and the church is doing it in the church, what's the purpose? Same purpose. So that by doing this, we all say to us, fantastic. The poor have become the poor were hungry and they were poor, and now they are fulfilled. Who are the poor? All of us. All of us are poor when we don't have Jesus. But when we experience the miracles of Jesus, our poverty is turned into abundance. See, when we share. But when we are private and personal, and all I care about is me, trouble. It's just not Christian. It's not. Same thing. The parable of the talents. Right? Same thing. He buried it. It was all about me. I was afraid of you. And who did he applaud? The entrepreneur, who's willing to take what I give you and multiply it, so that when I come back, you can give me more than what I gave you. It's beautiful, isn't it? Well, this miracle is the same thing. Anyway, I could go into a bunch of other tributaries here, but I don't want to. I want to end there because I try to keep it to, as I said, to the world. But I just want to talk a little bit about the last verse. And I'm going to preface it by saying, I may sound harsh as I'm teaching, because that's my job, is to kind of be a tack under people's rear ends, is to make you squirm a little bit, make us all squirm a little bit. But Jesus is much more understanding than me. Okay? So after he did this miracle, I find it really humorous and sad at the same time, is that St. John is saying, I'm giving you these signs. He was there, right? John was there. So he's giving you these signs so that if you look at these signs and believe in these signs, you will believe that Jesus is, what did we say? The Son of God, and that believing in him, his name, you may have life in his name. Okay? That he's the Son of God. So he was there. This miracle took place. And what was the impact on the disciples? What did they say? This is truly what? Okay, so what's wrong with that? I can't hear you. How do you know that?
Because they're making a decision now instead of what they already knew.
No. No. What about it? That's correct. He's just a prophet. They still don't get it. Right? How many people today do that? Well, Father, I said, well, why don't you receive communion? You should receive once a year. Maybe. Well, come on, And they have all these different excuses. And they say, well, don't you believe that Jesus died on the cross and was resurrected? This is what they go. They go, he was a good man. He was a good teacher. Ouch. He's right. Now, there's a good book written by Lewis. I think it's Lewis. C.S. Lewis, I think, called Mere Christianity. Mere Christianity. I'm pretty sure it's in that book. He says that people who say that are not logical. And this is what he says. If Jesus was a good man and a good teacher, would a good man and a good teacher lie to you? If Jesus is, I am the Son of God, okay? If he said that, and then if you believe, and there is no other way, I'm the only way, and I'm the truth, the life, and the way, and then and then you say to him, and then you say, well, no, I don't believe that Jesus rose from the dead. He is not the Son of God. But Jesus himself said that he is the Son of God. And that do you believe this, he said? He asked a number of times. You're going to get that question later on. So Lewis says, he doesn't give you that option. Either Jesus is who he says he is, or he's not, or you believe that he is not. And if he is not, after he says that he says, then he must be what? Either a lunatic, a liar, or a charlatan. That's what he says. You cannot have it both ways. You can't say that, well, he was a good man. No, a good man would not tell you that he is the Son of God. He's lying to you. So and the other option is that, well, then he was a charlatan. He was a trickster. He was manipulator. He himself was delusional. Okay, you want to say that? Okay. You want to believe that? You can. He gives you that option. Or you believe what he said, that he's the Son of God. But he does not give you the option, he says, of saying that he was a good man. I only believe in him as a good teacher. You don't have that option, he says. And he's correct. And yet here is the disciples saying the very same thing. Wow, look what he just did. He took all of this and we have leftovers and all this kind of stuff. Boy, what a great prophet. Really? Has any other prophet done this? Not to my knowledge. You see? Has anyone else risen from the dead? No? Then why do you think he's just a teacher? See? So here you see, and here is where I'm going to stop. Here you see in the Gospel of St. John the disciples growing. He's testing them. He's refining them. He's nurturing them. He's pouring wine into the water, displacing nipsis along the way until they finally have opsis, and then finally the Pentecost comes down and they have enosis. It's all there. Trust me, it's all there. And I'm taking you through it painstakingly like this so that by the time we get to the end, you're going to say, wow, I never saw that. I never realized that was there. And yet it is. And yet it is. Okay? Any final questions? Comments? Did it make sense? Did it not make sense? Did I tire you? Well, I know that it's not perfect, but it's. I'm hoping to get you to to appreciate the gospel a little bit more. That's all. Okay, so let's stop. We have an hour before. Those of you who would like to stay, at 3:00 we're doing the paraklesis. Tell your friends. Next Sunday we continue suffering.
Before our five, we'll back to Lasha here. We're going to put it back to the Sunday school class.
And Mark, if you don't mind putting this back in the thing, please.